Hello and welcome to Landscape Photography World, the podcast for everyone passionate about landscape photography. I'm Grant Swinburne and I'll be your host discussing the wonderful world of landscape photography today. This time I'll be talking to Adam Edwards, or Adsy Edwards as he's known on Instagram, about his landscape photography journey. Adam is Broken Hill based and his portfolio includes some stunning outback scenery from far west New South Wales, as well as South Australia and the Murray-Darling Basin. He's keen on a good sunset and really does a great job of capturing the Australian outback in places and in ways that many may never see. Some of you will know him from his live feeds on Instagram, where he'll take viewers on a shoot with him in the wonderful outback around his hometown. We'll be getting to know Adam a little better and we'll talk about how he got started with landscape photography, what are his workflows for outback photography, and how he's developed his style, along with an encounter with an unfortunate emu. I hope you enjoy the show. Hi Adam, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm really good, mate. How about yourself?
Yeah, going well. For despite lockdown, it's a bit depressing not being able to get out and shoot. But I'm doing what I can, and this podcast is a bit of that, bit of activity to keep the brain stimulated and be a bit creative when I can't be out there shooting, unfortunately. But when was the last time you got out? Sorry.
It must suck. I see you guys have had some absolutely beautiful skies.
Yeah, no.
While you've all been in lockdown.
I'm also out in Western Sydney, so for me to get to the beach, so it's okay for a Bondi or a Bronte shooter. They can sort of walk down there with the phone, and I actually saw on the news this morning a tog with a tripod down on one of the beaches, getting spoken to by the police. So yeah, I don't think it's an essential job. So,
or exercise.
Yeah, no, that's it. I mean, the walking to and from, fair enough. But yeah, for me, I can't leave the local government area anyway. So I'm kind of stuck where I am until it all blows over. But yeah, when was the last time you got out to shoot, and where did you go? I mean, you don't have those restrictions, so you can go any day, can't you?
Yeah, pretty much. So I've been doing a series where I've been exploring a lot of the local landscapes, and actually yesterday afternoon I've got out and I've got a mate that owns a property, so nice. We went and had a look in a paddock that's locked, so not many people get to go there, and found some amazing locations. So I'm really keen to get out there in some good conditions.
Yeah. So was that just sort of a scouting trip, was it?
Yeah, I took a few snaps, but more so scouting because I have someone with me. My process generally is just to walk through the scene myself, especially Sure. with this stuff that's local. I like to just sit and think deeply about it and try and work through it. But because I had a mate with me, we sat back and watched the sunset and took a couple of photos and just had a look through. I'd scouted the whole location on Google Maps. So we sort of just went and had a look at some of the things that I thought looked a bit interesting within that sort of probably 20 kilometres or so.
Sure.
Yeah,
Nice.
Really good.
So what does your workflow look like for shooting and setting up for a shoot like that?
Yeah, so it's forever changing. I think as I develop in that landscape space, it's always different. But currently, I guess there's two ways that I'll shoot a landscape. One is that I'll go and spend the time completely by myself wander, just look for something.
Yep.
But the other that I do quite often, and you've probably seen, is I'll go live on Instagram and talk people through my process. So
yeah, I want to talk to you about that in a bit more depth a bit later, but yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's the same as most, I guess. I like to feel what I'm about to photograph. And it sounds a bit fluffy, to be honest, but I think until you're in that headspace, you don't understand, you feel a composition or you feel a photo before you see it.
Yep.
And it's particularly, I'm trying to sharpen that skill, because going to some of these local places around home lately that are completely unexplored with a camera, I'm really having to wander around and get a feeling for what's going to make a nice shot, what styles I'm shooting at the moment, because that forever changes as well. So
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So what about when you get it home? Do you stick it straight in the computer and get editing, or do you normally let it sit and ferment for a bit? Yeah.
I'll always have a look, particularly because you have that bit of a buzz, I think, after you've been out and done
you can't wait to at least have a look at it.
Especially if you know that you've got something, if you know that you can turn the vision into the result, then I just can't wait to have a look. But what I do these days is I like to do a quick look, a quick edit. And what I'll often do is I'll just export an image to a OneDrive that I can look at on my phone.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's very rare I'll post or share it with anyone before I make maybe 10 changes. And because I'll just look at it and I'll come back to it and I'll come back to it and I'll come back to it until I'm really comfortable with it. And then that's when I'll share it. So it's got to be a really good shot to just go, I'm going to share it tomorrow, or I'm going to put it out there today. But yeah, I definitely like to have a quick look, get a feel for how it went, and then generally I don't do too much post. Like, I'm lucky to do 5 minutes on a photo maybe.
Yeah, okay. So what are your main adjustments?
Well, I always expose to protect the highlights.
Yep.
So my raw images just about always look underexposed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably the first one. Then just play with the the highlights, shadows, whites section in Lightroom. 99% of my stuff's done in Lightroom.
Yeah, okay.
And then I just wander through and get a feel. A lot of the stuff that I've been shooting has very, very little done. But what I'm trying to do more so at the moment is add some depth into a frame. So sometimes I'll put a gradient filter on and maybe add a bit of haze off in the distance or something just to draw the scene out a bit. But beyond that, maybe a couple of radial filters. I probably use more local adjustments now than global. Just touching tiny bits, maybe plus a little bit here and plus a little bit there.
So you're not doing any exposure blending or anything like that. It's just straight out of the camera and into Lightroom. Yeah,
not unless I have to. So there's a shot I posted recently where there's a tree taking most of the foreground, and it was a really
I think I know that one. Yep.
Really wide dynamic range. So I couldn't get that in one shot. So that's like a 2 or 3 exposure blend. A 3, I think, just because it was an automatic. I used the automatic exposure bracketing in the camera.
Yep.
But I find the newer model cameras, like I moved from the D850 to the Z7 II now, the newer they get, the more dynamic range you have.
Yeah, it's getting up there. It's still not as good as your eye, but it's getting there. Yeah,
it's amazing. Like there's stuff now that I will shoot to protect the highlights, and I know that I've got that shot in one shot. Even sometimes not having to use any filters, graduated filters. Like, I'll avoid it if I can. But it's more about the result than the process for me.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. So what got you started? What's your earliest photography memory?
I remember being in primary school and Mum bought a pretty reasonable quality film SLR before we did a big holiday. We went away and did a few rolls of film and come home, and some of the photos I was like, wow, like the quality of that is brilliant.
Yeah.
I guess I've always been very arty. Mum's right into arts and crafts, and that definitely come from her because I love to draw, paint, anything creative.
Yep.
Throughout school, I did a lot of arts and crafts, but then I couldn't wait to leave school and do a trade. So
yeah, fair enough.
I sort
well,
of
you got to make money somewhere. There's not much in the arts, is there?
I mean, I was doing really well at school. It wasn't about struggling with the academic side of things, but I just always wanted to be a mechanic. So cool. The first opportunity I got, which was at the end of year 11, I dropped out and went and did a heavy diesel trade.
Okay.
So, yeah, that gave me a few years off, but it also gave me an income to be able to buy a camera when I was keen to get back into it. And, it just went from there. I bought a Panasonic Lumix all-in-one, shot everything with that. And then I think by about 2003, I went and bought a Nikon D200 and haven't looked back since.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
So what's the reason for landscape photography versus all the other genres that are out there?
I love the process. So it's a grounding process for me. I love the time exploring, the time, taking time to take in the scene, creating something sometimes beautiful out of something that's not necessarily beautiful.
Rusty old gate, for example. I know
or an old car.
Or an old car.
100%. But I guess the caveat to that is when I got right into photography in the early 2000s, I did make a run at doing it more professionally. So I did a lot of commercial portrait, weddings, and all of that stuff. And I learned a pretty hard lesson was in shooting to pay the bills, it becomes a job. So it becomes a chore.
You don't like it quite as much, eh?
No. I mean, I look back with those memories very fondly because I learned a lot about business and a lot about photography and all of that. But I also look back to a point where I put a camera down for about 4 years, and just had no want or drive to pick it up. And went through a few changes external to photography in life, and then decided, because I travelled a lot for work, that I had some really good opportunities to see some cool places. So anywhere pretty much in all of Australia. And then I just started to take the camera with me, and I just couldn't put it down. And because I had learnt that lesson and have always said I must have knocked back probably 5 weddings and 20 portraiture shoots in the last few years. But I want to really stay true to the fact that I'm only going to do what I love to do. Yeah,
okay. So you touched briefly on what your style was. How would you describe it? And how how's it evolved from where you kind of started in landscapes and to where you are now?
Yeah, I believe I've probably taken the same route as so many people. I think I've always loved to shoot landscapes, but when you first start out, you really heavily process your images and you get really, saturated.
Saturation up to 100, yeah.
Lots of clarity, lots of all of those good things.
Yeah.
And I think slowly you learn that less is more.
Yeah. Subtlety in the art is really where it's at, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. I'd say probably in the last 12 months, I've really focused on trying to represent what I see rather than, the version of image that I feel like everyone wants.
Yeah.
So I really want to be at that point where I'm producing an image that I see at the time from my memory. I don't care about photorealism or any of that stuff like that. It honestly doesn't matter to me. I don't care if the sky was was blue and I made it purple. But if at the time I saw it as purple, that's what I wanted the final result to be, because that's where photography becomes art in my mind. So to be able to put out an image that you visually see, I think that gives other people the opportunity to see, the world through your eyes.
Yeah. Yep.
And the best bit about that is then you start to produce really consistent images. The more you can, flex that muscle, and the more you're producing stuff that you're really happy with, and you don't care I don't care how many people like it or dislike it. I'm producing something that comes straight from me. And since I've done that, I've noticed I've just got a much more consistent look to my images and compositions. And I just think that's your mission as an artist of any description, is to be able to show the world what you see. So there's too many people make time to produce what the world wants to see, and then you just get lost in the sea of all people.
Cool. So what's the most important thing about photography that you tell your 10-year-old self?
Oh, it's probably on the back of what I just said, I think, is produce the stuff that you want to produce. Don't try and pay the bills by doing something that you don't want to do, because you don't ever want your passion to become a chore. And I think it's too easy to let that happen. Like if you've got talent, you've got skill, and you really enjoy it, and I think go for it, but definitely don't sell yourself out. I feel like a lot of people learn to dislike what they do purely because they're trying to pay bills with it.
Yep.
If you can pay the bills with it, fantastic. There's lots of people that do that. But if you sell your passion into a job, then what have you got? You've got to go find another passion or another hobby or something else to be that
to
relief from normal life. Yeah.
No, I get exactly what you mean. I mean, for me, it's about the creative outlet and being able to escape from, what's a relatively high pressure job that I've got, and, dealing with what's in my head and getting it out by just going out, looking at a scene, as you said, and, trying to work your angles, trying to work your composition so that you're getting the best out of it. Doesn't always work, but, it's for me, it's just about that, relaxation of being able to, de-stress, think about solely one thing, which is how do I make this the best I can make it,
Yeah. I listened to a few podcasts about, personal growth and all of those sorts of things. And one thing that resonates with me about people that have, a passion or hobby or an escape is that whatever that thing is, it's something that absorbs you for a period of time. So it's something that when you're doing it, you don't think about anything else.
Yep.
And just, even that 10, 15, 20 minutes in your photography afternoon, where you don't think about the stress at work, where you don't think about the stress at home, whatever, you're just completely into getting a result or thinking about a composition. People do, martial arts and boxing and all of the same things. And I think one of the podcasts I listen to a bit is Gary Jublin's crime podcast. And one of the things he said that resonated with me, he said, it's hard to worry about all the stresses in life when you're getting your head punched in, because he does mixed martial arts.
Kind of focuses the mind,
Yeah, and I find that with photography, I'll pack up and I'll drive out and I'll be thinking about everything on the way there, but from the minute I stop and put the camera in hand, that's it. It's all gone. I'm just purely focused on what I'm doing.
Yep. No, I know. I feel you. It's exactly the same for me. So when you say you go out, right, you're out at Broken Hill, so the Outback is really your playground in terms of photography. What's your favourite spot there? I know there's a few famous ones, Silverton and whatever, but what's your favourite?
Probably the lakes at Menindee. So
Yep.
that's only 100 kilometres or so from Broken Hill. But more not just because it's a beautiful place. Like you could spend weeks there and never take the same photo.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I've got a lot of family memories there. We sort of grew up spending every other weekend in that area. So yeah, it's pretty good. But that and Silverton, like I can shoot the same building at Silverton every day and still enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like there's one building that I love. I get a different angle every other day, and the scenery around it changes throughout the year. And you go at night, you go at sunset. Like it just changes so much that you could go there every day and still love it, still enjoy it.
Yeah.
But like I've been really focused on trying to get out and photograph landscapes that aren't a thing.
Yeah.
It's not the popular spot. In fact, most people wouldn't even think twice about it as they drive past it on the road.
Yeah, they're just driving past, and it's some scrub on the on the red earth, and not really taking any notice of it because they're doing 110 kilometres an hour and not thinking about taking photos. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, and I think there's so much unique landscape in Australia that isn't the normal. Like places like Uluru. Like I haven't been there since I was a kid, but yeah, that rock's amazing. But it's surrounded by some of the best desert in Australia, some of the best mountain.
Every direction
mountain
you look, there's a scene. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's never exposed as it should be. I think everyone goes and gets the shot for Instagram and moves on. One of the places I want to explore a lot more when we can travel is back in the Flinders Ranges.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's very much the same. There's lots of the very same photos. It's either an aerial of Wilpena Pound, or there's one or two lookouts where you get a really good view.
Yeah.
But outside of that, there's nothing. But it's absolutely stunning. Like it's the most beautiful landscape.
Yeah, and I just love the colours of the Australian outback. That deep, rich ochre red that you get in the soil, the greens that you can get, particularly after a bit of rain. And the wildflowers when they come out each year. And even as you said, the rusty old car and the rusty gate and so forth, and some of the old buildings, that even the abandoned ones, they're just they're unique. You don't see them anywhere else in the world, and I just think they're an amazing thing. Living in Sydney, unfortunately, it's mostly about beaches. You might go and do a bit of waterfalls and whatever, and the cityscapes, but I love it when I do get out there, but I don't get out there anywhere near as much as I'd like to.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realise that New South Wales extends past Lithgow.
Yeah, I have some people at work that I think they think the west starts at Pitt Street.
Yeah, yeah, that's how it is. But the funny part of it is you have to travel 6 hours to get anything that remotely resembles outback from the east coast.
Yeah.
You're not even going to see it till you get maybe to Dubbo, but even that's agricultural outback. That's
it. I mean, until you get out past Condobolin and there, right in the centre, out past Lake Cargellico, it's all still agricultural land. And even I mean, I wouldn't go so far as saying you'd have to get to Darnick before you see the outback, because you see it a bit before then. But there's been
quite a big push this year, though. There's been a lot more metro tourists out this way, so it's been really good to see. Because of all the state border lockdowns and the international travel bans and things like that, a lot of people have been coming and actually seeing the outback. So
seeing places that they don't normally go. No, I know exactly what that's about too, because I mean, where I work, we do quite a lot of that sort of promotional stuff to sort of try and encourage people to get out there and do that sort of thing. And I think it's really important. I love international travel, and go to Iceland or the Faroes and whatever at the drop of a hat. But
Yeah.
I'd also equally go to Broken Hill or Silverton or Uluru at the drop of hat too. And I think you should explore around your own backyard, as much as you possibly can. And by your backyard, I don't mean within 20 or even 100 k's around here. I mean, there is a phenomenal number of places that you can go shooting around Sydney, but I think getting out past, as you say, getting out past Lithgow and getting out into the Western Plains and out further, there's some stunning stuff around some of the riverlands and whatever. There's the Murray-Darling Basin has some amazing scenery as well, and I mean, even just some of the old trees that are still there. Some of those 150-year-old river gums that sit there on the bank of the Murray or the Darling. They're just phenomenal subjects, I think. But
there's still
and
trees.
You can't see a lot of them.
No, and there's still trees there with carvings from the first explorers.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Yeah.
Where in the world can you go and see things like that? And I think the challenge in Australia, even if you're isolated to a conversation about New South Wales, is how big it is.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
like I think you could easily drive for 2 or 3 hours before you've seen something that really tickled you for a shot.
Yeah.
If you were just exploring, but when you get that shot that nobody else has got, then that's got to be, there's got to be some gratification for that, rather than looking on Instagram. And there's nothing wrong with it. I use Instagram a lot to research locations.
Yeah.
Looking on there and picking it and going in to the exact same location as someone else. I think that it's good. It's good to create beautiful stuff, but I'm really getting a lot of gratification out of going and finding and creating something that no one has seen and people want to go to. Like, I've had some inboxes about, where's this? Like,
how do I find that?
Well, you start heading west.
I'll see you in about a day.
Yeah.
Because it'll take you nearly that long to get here.
Yeah, and even I've seen a massive spike in visitors to places like Mungo National Park and things like that.
That's become really popular, Insta famous, as they say.
Yeah, well, it worries me a little bit because it's such a special area.
It is quite a delicate landscape too. But and I think that's one of the issues with social media and the ability for people to see and as you say, where's that? Oh, I've got to go there and take the shot and make it Insta famous and be part of that. I've got that shot.
I've played to it. I've played
everyone does. I mean, you look at my shots of the Sydney Harbour Bridge or the Opera House. That's exactly what that is. They're iconic, and people love those shots. And if you can get something that's a little bit different or a little bit unique, then great. But I think I mean, it's not like people walking over the Harbour Bridge or or under it or taking photos of it's going to make it fall apart. But a place like Mungo, the pressure of high volume tourism in there would be devastating, I think. And I know that they've done a lot of work to to try and restrict anyone. They've got the little raised wooden paths and those sorts of things, but people still get
you're not allowed in certain areas. Look, that's what worries me, because I did a cultural guided tour there, and you're walking on fossils. Like, literally, if you go out to the wrong area, you're walking on fossils and remnants of ancient fire pits and all sorts of things that are really need to be protected. So, like, I feel like modern civilization's already ruined the landscape, because without the grazing, it wouldn't have created the erosion in the landscape that's already there.
Yeah, that's right.
It's beautiful, but I think the benefit places like that have going are they are a lot harder to get to. and accommodation is really hard to come by. So it's pretty unique experience. But
yeah, definitely.
You see it in the Blue Mountains all the time, places that become a bit famous, and you might as well put a highway in out to the spot where you get the photo.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. You do quite a bit of astro out back, so that's obviously for me to get dark skies like yours. I've got to drive 6 hours, but you can sort of how long does it take you to get away from the light pollution, say Broken Hill and Silverton and that?
Yeah, so literally maybe 10, not even 10 minutes. It just depends on what area of the sky you want to photograph.
Yep.
So I probably don't do nearly as much as I'd like to. I promised myself this year that every time the moon phase was good, I'd get out, but I've been out twice. So that's a bit of a struggle. But if you want to shoot the Milky Way rising, then you head out towards Menindee, not even 10 minutes. And the closest lights is Menindee, which is a population of like 40 or 50 people. And it's 100 kilometres away. So that's the next lights, other than 1 or 2 for a homestead here and there. So, and if you want to shoot the Milky Way setting, you drive out towards Silverton, and the same thing.
Yeah, once
look out over the Mundy Plains.
There's nothing for hundreds of kilometres out past Silverton.
No, you can even see the very tip of the Flinders Ranges from Mundy Lookout. So that's hundreds of kilometres away on a clear day. So we're really lucky for that. Yeah, I think some nights I've been out and the sky's been too dark. So like you expose and you just can't get anything but black in some areas of the sky. But I wouldn't claim to be an expert, but I think having really good dark skies helps a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you use, for any of your shots, do you use star trackers, or are you just doing like the standard 20 to 30 second, slightly higher ISO and f1 point, whatever you got on the lens,
Yeah, I bought a star tracker last year and I've used it once. So they're quite fickle to get polar aligned. So that's something that I need to work on. But the time that I got it right, the results were absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I was able to shoot the Milky Way at ISO 400 instead of whatever I would normally use, depending on the night. But one thing that I've found really helpful is just stacking images. So just using Sequitur or one of those software just to stack the images. And that does a really good job. A lot of my posts lately have just been 20 or 30 second images stacked. So, 8 or 10 images stacked.
Yeah, so you're culling out all the noise and just getting your stars nice and sharp. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. I want to get out and do a bit more longer focal length stuff. Most of my stuff's all at 14 or 18 mil, where you can get away with a bit longer shutter speed. But if I can get the tracker sorted, I'd love to do some sort of medium field, sort of 50 to 70 mil stuff, just to get that really rich detail in the sky.
Well, I've got a question from one of the audience. They sent in. This is from Glenn Crouch. How creepy does it get when you're out shooting astro in the outback?
I've actually packed up and come home. It really does, because you hear all those talks of min lights and all the weird anomalies that happen when you're sitting in the quiet by yourself. And I remember in late in the 2019 Milky Way season, I went out and it was just a pitch black night. Like you could not see. I couldn't even see the setting, the legs on my tripod without some extra light.
Wow.
And I stayed there for as long as I could before I was like, nah, that light's definitely getting closer. And I know the area very well, and I know in my head that it's a homestead maybe 20 or 30 kilometres away, and it's probably just the yard light out the front of the house. But it is pretty creepy. It's always better to be with.
popping into the head.
It's always better to be out with someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you shoot with other people much, or is it pretty much solo?
No, as much as I can. So I like anyone that comes to town that I know even reasonably well. I like to make sure I make time to at least shoot a sunset with them or something.
Yeah, great.
Purely because I really love the community part of the landscape photography, community. Like I love the networking and actually physically talking to people that you talk to on and off is really good. But yeah, I'd say all the local stuff, I probably do 90% of it myself.
Yep.
My stepson's been coming out in the afternoons after school sometimes. But it's only really since we've been really bound down that I've done a lot of local stuff. If you look at everything sort of the year or two previous to last year, I did most of my stuff was travel.
Yeah.
And I guess it's that, that comfort of what you see every day. It gets a bit hard to shoot sometimes.
Yeah.
But I spent a lot of time in Sydney, a lot of time in the Blue Mountains.
I sometimes think that about the Opera House. It's a go-to, but sometimes you think, well, there's only so many angles and there's only, so many ways to shoot it, and you kind of go, I'm not going to do that today.
Yeah, agree. But obviously, since all the COVID stuff's happened, I use it more and more as a release. So I try and get out at least once a week, but normally it's 2 or 3 times. And I'm always planning a trip, because I think in planning a trip, you've got something to look forward to. And that's just a coping mechanism for life in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
You've only got, I've had mine ripped out from under me the last couple of weeks. I was going to New Zealand next week, but like I'm always planning something, or I'm always on Google looking for what I can shoot when I go somewhere, or I've got this pictorial of all these awesome trees in my head on my normal travel routes that one day I'll be there at the right time and I'll stop and shoot that tree.
Yeah. You mentioned, that sense of community that you talked about earlier. I noticed on your page you got a DM request with the hashtag community over competition on your Insta page. So I'm interested in hearing a bit more about that and what that means to you.
Yeah, for sure. I love interacting with people, and I reflect on what I've learned and know about photography, and I wouldn't have learned or known that without some good friends and community to help me.
Yep.
So I really enjoy telling people how I made an image, or there's no protection for me. There's one thing that I won't tell people, and it's where a particular location in my feed is, because it's a private property, and just to respect the people.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah.
But beyond that, I don't really have secrets. Like, I think everyone gets better if it's like that. I really dislike that competitive nature of things. So I kind of reveled when Instagram took the like count off of everyone, but I noticed that they've given it back to most people now. So I definitely think that break from that actually changed the community quite a bit, because everyone previous to that was just so focused on, look how many likes,
how many followers, how many likes, yada yada.
Yeah. Whereas I like to look, just because I like to see what people's community looks like. What's the engagement? How many people follow them? Just more as an interest. It's almost a bit of a hobby. And like, for people doing well, I'm just so happy for them, because it's such a hard sort of market, that social media.
Absolutely.
But even when it comes to printing or any of that sort of stuff, any of my closer photography friends, I've helped them get some prints through trade accounts that I've got for my stuff. And like, why protect that stuff rather than help someone produce something if they haven't done it before?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic attitude towards it, and unfortunately I know that there are a lot of community-minded photographers out there, and they're the ones that I like to associate with and spend my time with. but occasionally you just come up against these people that it's all about me and so forth. And it's kind of like, okay, you want to go off on your own, that's fine. I haven't got a lot of time for that.
I just tune it out. I've got really good at just ignoring it. Like I'll pat anyone on the back, no matter what, if they have a success, because I think most people's result is a success of the entire community that surrounds them, not an individual effort.
Yeah, it's kind of good. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I do that feature Friday every Friday morning. Well, I didn't make it Friday morning last week, but had a few things on at work. But for me, one of the things that I look at is, if it's a quality shot, I don't care whose it is and whether they've got 100 followers, 50 followers, or 100,000 followers. I'll post it. Occasionally, though, if I notice that it's somebody that's well known and whatever, I probably tend to steer clear of those because they don't need any more attention than they're already getting. But for me, I find it really nice when the guys with 100 followers or whatever, they're there, just saying thanks, and that's all it takes is just a thanks. Yep. I don't do it for the thanks. I do it because I love their shots and I want to share them with more people. So from my perspective, that's one of the ways that I like to sort of bring the community together a bit. And for me, it's also one of the reasons why I'm doing the podcast is to engage more with the community. And, if people get information out of this that they can use in their photography journey, then, I think that's one of the reasons why I want to talk to as many, inspiring photographers as I can find, so that other people can also be inspired, and hopefully they'll get a lesson on this and enjoy their journey through photography.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. I think the thing I struggle with that, and sometimes I do struggle to get back to people, it's just the time that it takes. Yeah. Like I always enjoy seeing you feature Friday because you sort of gather up the shots that sometimes I don't get time to see or anything.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, I know going through my feed, I don't see everything that's there, and for me, it is about I just pop them in a save folder specifically for that, which I clear out each week. And for me, it's about making sure that the ones that it really caught my eye that I did get to see, that I can share them and people get to see them, because from my perspective, they deserve to be seen. People like them or don't like them, I don't care, but
it's awesome. That's how it should be. And like even things like that, knowing that a save helps someone's reach. Like if I like your photo and we talk, or even if we've just interacted, if I like it, I save it too. Like it's just automatic because I know that helps someone. Yeah, little things like that.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you see as the impact that social media is having on photography in general? Is it good, bad, indifferent? Yeah.
I feel mixed about it, to be honest. I think it has a lot of positive impact, obviously, because it gives people a platform to share what they do with everybody. I think that's the ultimate goal, and that's what things like Instagram were created for. I think if the community doesn't have the right majority of the right mindset, then it becomes that competitive space, and all of a sudden people just don't use it for what it's there for. And then there's the impact, we touched on it earlier about the whole, the impact of the environment and locations, and all of a sudden everyone knows where the next great shot is, and it kind of frustrates me a bit, but I think it's a necessary evil to have that platform to communicate. And like I was involved years ago in the DSLR users forum. That was that was even before Insta, and that was the only way you could communicate with other photographers online and share your work. And it was frustrating because, there's a lot of effort, and it's a limited community to share things with. But I feel like you had a lot of quality engagement, whereas you get a lot of tokenistic engagement these days.
Yeah. I think for me, one of the things that is missing, one of the things I liked about, so I had a bit of time in, I think it could have been the Australian Photography Forum. I can't remember the name of it because I haven't used it for a couple of years. But I really liked the constructive feedback aspect of that. And that, to me, is the thing that, Twitter and, Insta and Facebook, etc. It's all about the likes, and it tends to be all about the that's a great shot, and that's all you get, which is nice because you get that serotonin hit and whatever, and you feel good about yourself because you've got somebody saying it's a nice shot. But And it's not like I want every Tom, Dick, and Harry, picking apart the shot. Oh, I don't like the shade of blue you used in the sky or whatever, But for me, having somebody look at the photo in a critical manner and give you constructive feedback and say, okay, well, you've just slightly overblown that highlight there, because you've dodged it too much or whatever, That sort of feedback to me is gold, because then I can hone the craft. You can get yourself into a mindset where you're looking for those sorts of things. I remember, learning a lot about controlling noise in underexposed images, simply because I got some constructive feedback because I'd, trying to expose for the highlights and all those sorts of things. You do underexpose, and then your shadows, they can get a bit noisy if you go too far. If you haven't got your settings quite right.
For sure.
And so that sort of thing to me was gold, because it helped me, learn how to focus on what I needed to do, both in the shooting but also in the editing. If I found I did get a bit too much noise, then how do I actually use noise reduction the right way to clean it up, And so for me, that kind of constructive feedback is the bit that's just totally missing. And I don't know. I honestly don't know how it would work in forums like, Instagram or Twitter. It's probably an impossible ask, but and it's probably better suited to things like the bulletin board sort of style forum thing, which is moderated and so forth. But because you'd have a lot of people chimping at your at your work, just chucking poo at it because they felt like it, not because they were actually being constructive.
Yeah, I actually, I guess the way that I do that is I've got a fairly close-knit group of guys that I trust.
Yeah.
I'll always send my images out. Hey, what do you think of this? Something new. And I think the difficult part of the feedback piece is that you need to know that the person's actually willing to receive feedback.
Yeah,
like that's the struggle, because I think we're in a bit of an age where we have a few fairies around that don't like even the most smoothly delivered constructive feedback.
Yeah, actual constructive feedback. Yeah,
yeah. Like I would never, sling shit at anyone's work ever, no matter what I thought of it. I would always try and offer something constructive. But I think we're in this big group of people where that's not the case for a lot of people. So you've got to know whether someone is actually willing to accept some feedback. So every now and then I'll see someone that I engage with enough that I can send them an inbox and say, hey, do you mind if I give you some feedback around this? And just ask whether it's okay. And 9 times out of 10, it's an okay. Sometimes it's, I'd prefer that you didn't. So that's cool. But I agree. I think that quality engagement piece, like I said in the forums, you would always get really quality engagement, and especially if it was moderated. Yeah, so I think that's an opportunity, is to engage in some really specific online groups like the Nikon community that I've been engaging in, where it's got a feedback culture rather than just, thumbs up or, a really tokenistic engagement where it's sort of welcome the feedback. And I think it's probably up to the person to seek the feedback rather than people just wanting to freely give it in the day we're in nowadays. I think time gone by, you were getting feedback whether you liked it or not. But I think now you probably need to build yourself a group of people. And even if it's someone that you respect or idolise, reach out and say, hey, do you mind if you give me some feedback on this image?
Yeah. I mean, I've done that with a couple of larger name photographers that I know that they got their own gallery and that sort of thing. And one of the reasons is it's not that I want them saying it's a great image. I want to know how to improve. I'm looking to understand photography better and understand the craft better, and getting feedback from these guys that have got years and years of experience and building a business and understanding what it takes to make fine art photography. They're the guys that can provide you with some of that feedback, as long as they're willing to do it. You've got to approach it in the right way, and you got to make sure that they're open to it. But once you do, I think it's just absolute gold.
Yeah, agree. And people that can make a living out of their prints have a special talent, I think. Like, absolutely. To turn it from something that looks amazing on a screen to something that looks amazing in print, that's just a skill that you don't just have. It's something that takes a lot of learning.
Yeah, it is a real craft, and the guys that understand that colour and light and transferability from screen to print. I've printed a few things and they've come out okay, but I reckon I could improve it a lot if I knew a lot more about what I was doing. And they're the kind of things that I'm really interested in learning more about. You mentioned the live stream, and I said I wanted to sort of talk a little bit more about that. What started that off, and why do you do it, and what's the motivation? What do you think people think of it?
I guess I started it because I seen that the feature was there, and I thought I'll have a crack at this and see what it's like. It quickly turned into some really good conversations, and that's what I love about it. So I get a few questions during the live, but generally I just find myself wambling on about whatever I'm doing at the time, or sometimes it gets to a point where it's like, this is a bit weird. But what I find is it's really strengthened some of the engagements I have with this bit of community that I'm building. Like, it turns into a conversation afterwards about, I noticed you were using this, or I noticed you were doing that. Why do you do that? And they're the conversations that I love having with people. Anyone that has been around me will say, once we had a bit of a joke about it at the start, once you start talking about photography, it's pretty hard to get me to stop. So I really enjoy it. And I think particularly now, I feel like making the effort to do it because I know lots of people can't.
Yeah.
So in the afternoon, when I head out for a sunset, I know that people are probably sitting at home wishing they could get out as well.
Yeah.
And I must have had 20 or 30 people comment and say, "Oh, we've been really enjoying that because we're sitting at home and can't go outside."
Yeah. So, no, I've got to say, the ones that I've been able to get onto, unfortunately, so this time of year they tend to coincide when I'm trying to wrap up work, so I don't get to jump on Instagram until about 6:30, 7 o'clock sometimes. But for me, the one I've really enjoyed, watching you go through your process and talk a bit about it, and as you say, womble on about stuff, but that's part of the fun of it, I think. Just watching and seeing what another human being is doing across the other side of the state.
Yeah, and I think I hope people get a bit of comedy in the level of frustration I have sometimes when it's like really good. And I'm trying to put the legs of my tripod down while I'm holding a gimbal and I'm trying to do everything at once. It's like, I've just got to stop. Hang on, I've got to put you on the ground. But yeah, I really enjoy it. And I guess I was a bit hooked from the first time I did it, just purely because it started some different conversations. Like it started and I'd get off and I'd say, well, like 400 people seen that. A lot of people don't stick around for the whole lot, but there's a core group of people that if they jump on when I'm 5 minutes in, they'll watch me for an hour. And I'm like, wow, like how amazing is that? Because then we have some conversations, and some days the photos might not be great and someone wants to talk about the setup I've got in the back of the car, or like it can turn into anything. It doesn't have to be about how I'm taking this photo. It's why I chose to go to this location, or what I've done to make this easier, or why I'd choose a certain filter, and all of those sorts of things. And I think just the quality of the conversation that comes out of that every time, like I would guarantee I start a good conversation out of every live.
I got another question from the crowd. This one from Billy's Clicks. What's the closest call out in the outback while you've been shooting? They're all worried about Wolf Creek from the sounds of it.
yeah. Mick doesn't live out here. Oh, look, I've had a few. Probably, well, it wasn't even a close call. It was an incident. Rushing for a sunset with a friend and obviously not speeding or anything, but collecting an emu right in the door of my car. The emu was fine, but my car wasn't.
For the viewers the listeners overseas, if you haven't seen an emu, they're not small.
It's like an 8-foot chicken. They're pretty solid. But yeah, there's always something, especially when you're pushing the limits of where you're trying to go, or like always something. But that definitely is an incident. The wildlife around here at that time of the day is pretty bad. It's not so bad at the moment, but and just getting tangled up and losing time too. If you're on a time schedule for something, I've quite often done that, where I'll get tangled up and I should have been somewhere or done something, and all of a sudden I missed that. But no Wolf Creek incidents yet.
No, that's good. What's the worst thing about being a landscape photographer?
Oh, just it's part of the good thing and a part of the bad thing, I think, is you're constantly dreaming about where you're off to next. The
constant desire to be somewhere else.
It's catch-22 because it's what keeps the mind ticking, and often if I've got a spare 10 minutes while I'm eating my lunch or whatever, I'll find myself on Google Maps just wandering around, even though I've explored,
I've been in a few meetings, particularly the last couple of weeks, because I'm working from home, on Microsoft Teams, and I'll start thinking about planning a shoot that I don't know when it'll come, but
I've struggled with that working from home.
It is distracting sometimes because your mind starts wandering to where you're going to shoot next.
Yeah, and then it's distracting, but it's motivating all in the same sense. Or I guess the ultimate worst thing is when you're somewhere you really don't want to be, doing something you really don't want to be doing. Yeah, and it's just amazing sky or amazing light. Or
Well, it's a bit like the last 3 or 4 days here in Sydney. Looking at the skies, going, I could be out knee deep in seawater at the moment, or standing at Circular Quay, looking through the through the lens. But it's not to be, unfortunately. There's been some.
That'd definitely be the worst thing, I think, is just that either that constant dream state and definitely the being somewhere you don't want to be when there's somewhere else that's amazing.
So what do you like to do when you're not shooting?
Yeah, so I'm a bit similar to yourself. I've got a pretty full-on stressful job. That takes up a fair bit of the day, but just spending time with family, honestly. I think we do a lot of travel to see my family. Majority of them are in Mildura, so we travel there when we can every second week. So you see a few of my stuff comes up is from that area as well.
Yep.
But between work, family and photography, and then the travel in between for photography and to see family, that's life filled up.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So last and probably the most important question of the night, pineapple on pizza.
100%.
Excellent.
that is an important question, definitely.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It's been really fascinating, sort of, to learn a lot more about your photography journey and what you do and how you do what you do. Where can people find your work?
A few places. Obviously, Instagram, which is just at @the_Edwards. Facebook, but I don't. To be honest, I take the lazy approach and just post my Insta posts to Facebook. So that's pretty much it. It's just a different audience. And I've got my own website, which is just www.adamedwards.com.au.
Cool.
I've got a bit of a blog section there, which I try to update. I've got a few drafts happening. Mainly Insta. Like, I feel like that's still the best forum to engage with people, honestly. I know there's a lot of talk about turning it more into a video platform, but every poll or conversation I see, the users still want it to be a photography platform. So I think in the end, the users will triumph, because if they try to turn it into TikTok, everyone will just go elsewhere.
Yeah, everybody abandons the platform. They're not going to be making the money they make now. So
be like you or I switching to gardening on your Instagram feed. You'd lose your following, and that it's the same as Instagram's built around a community to do with sharing photographs.
It's funny. I see a lot of people on Twitter that have supposedly migrated from Instagram to Twitter, and there seems to be a lot of whinging that their engagement is really low. And I don't know whether they're just after likes or whether they're after comments or what. But I know from my own experience, I'm seeing growth sort of week on week, month on month, and part of that's probably because of the amount that I do engage, but my experience isn't the same as theirs, and I'm kind of looking at it going, and I've been on Twitter for 10 years, and I don't know how many followers I got there, but not many,
And I haven't dived into the Twitter sphere or whatever they call it.
I just find it really weird seeing some of the conversations, panning and whinging about how bad the algorithm is, and anyway.
It's always changing, right? So you can never expect it to be the same.
No,
and I think it's a big community in the broader sense, but even just tonight we mentioned a couple of different people, and we both know them. Like the legitimate community that's really centred around something like landscape photography in Australia, who are going to quality engage with your work, is actually pretty small.
Yeah.
The end users who want to chuck a thumbs up or a like, well, that's a different story.
Yeah, totally.
Because people love beautiful photos.
Yeah.
But I think they're not the people that are going to engage with you constantly. I think you just need to aim to have that group of people, that is your community, that you do have quality engagement with, and forget about all the numbers that come with, all the other stuff.
Totally with you on that. Totally with you.
Yeah.
All right, mate. Well, thank you very, very much.
No worries.
Thanks again for listening to Landscape Photography World. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll keep listening, because I'll be joined with some great guests in upcoming episodes. I'm Grant Swinburne, and hope to see you out shooting soon.